morning, everyone. So I wanted to just give you a quick overview of what we're going to do this week. I know it's tempting to just click on activity stream, and I want to discourage you from doing that. Click on the class, and when you get into the class, after you look through all these items, when you're ready to actually work on the course content, click on course content, and tomorrow morning there will be two folders that will show up. What we're going to be talking about this week is about macromolecules and enzymes. Enzymes are a type of macromolecules. They're proteins too. And we're going to be talking in the macromolecules, we're going to be talking about food, about biological structures and what the molecules look like that make you up. And then you're going to use tests to figure out what types of macromolecules are in different foods. With the enzymes, we're going to look specifically at a specific type of protein called enzyme, which is basically the workhorses of the body. So those are essentially the tools, and we're going to talk about how these tools work. If you're going to get anything out of this, the very basics I want you to get out of these two modules is one, that you literally are what you eat. And two, if I ask you what are the tools in the body, your answer should be enzymes. And I will address each individual item. Actually, I'll go through it real quick. So each time when you're going into one of those classes, one of the modules, each of the modules is always going to be set up exactly the same way. It always starts out with an overview, a walkthrough through the module, and I want to encourage you to watch the module, the walkthrough. In some cases, it's really short. And it simply says, "Hey, there's the lab handout. There's the quiz." But in other cases, it may really be very helpful for you to be able to find the connections, how these things go together, and what you're supposed to be looking at, because it's a little different for each module. So spend the 5 minutes it takes to watch the walkthrough. I try to make them short. So because I know that you don't want to necessarily listen for hours and hours to me talk. Then there's a handout, the lab handout. When you click on this link here, it'll take you to a OneDrive, and there's always going to be a folder for a lab handout, the PowerPoint, and the question set. If you click on the lab handout, usually you'll see, you can scoot that over a little bit. Usually you'll see, at the very least, you'll see a Word document and a PDF. If the PDF looks funky in its setup, if there's pictures, if you don't see pictures where there should be pictures, try the other one and see, and let me know if it looks funky to you. When you go back, you can then find the PowerPoints, and the lecture and the demo are based on these PowerPoints. And then there's oftentimes a question set. The question set is usually just pulled out from the lab manual. So the lab manual usually contains the question set, but if you want to just print out the question set and just work with the materials that you are working with, the question set is very helpful. So that's the lab handout. Then there's going to be a background section. The background section always tells you what you should be paying close attention to. And then there's a lecture. The lecture is I'm going through the PowerPoint that you have access to in this lecture. In the lab instruction, I go over the kinds of things that we're going to do in the lab. I'm going to tell you what we normally do in the lab, what the reactions are, so that you understand what these pictures are coming from and what the kinds of things are I want you to get out of this. And then we come to the activities and assignments. Usually everything you have to actually do is right here. So usually you'll have a lecture quiz. The way you do a lecture quiz, you just click on it, right? And then it has questions. Lecture quizzes, you always have 3 attempts. If you ever don't have 3 attempts, let me know. Then if you, now the lecture quizzes, some people have said, oh, I need to figure out where the material is that I need for these lecture quizzes. So I'm going to try to actually make a link to the lab handout in the video lecture right there, so that you don't have to go searching for it earlier. There's a link to the Labster materials, but the Labster materials are also available separately in a folder that says Labster simulations. They're all in there, but by and large, I also link them through the assignments. In the first week, I think I'm giving you 5 or 6 Labster assignments. You don't have to do all of them. You have to do a total of 10. So if any of them give you trouble, just skip that one. Just do a different one. And then the handout question set. So there's usually, in the lab handout, there's usually questions that are being asked. And I go over that in the module, in the walkthrough in the modules. Most of the time, I'm going to give you a quiz for the question set. And sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes the quiz is easier to do than the lab handout, because you have prescribed answers. So if you're struggling getting through the lab handout, just go open the quiz. There's no time limit on the quiz. You have unlimited tries for the question set quiz every time. And then this is just, these are the kinds of things that you should know. And then there's a Google site I made with all the images and videos and those kinds of things that we need. So if Blackboard ever breaks down, we can go to the Google site. But the Google site also helps you with some materials. It's more in some weeks than in others. But that's basically how this whole thing is set up, and every module is set up exactly the same way. So if you click on enzymes, you got the same thing. You got the overview, you got the lab handouts, you got the background information, the demonstrations I need you to see, and then the activities, and then the link to the Google site. So this is what you're going to be looking at every week, and hopefully that's going to help you make your way through the class.